Everyone in the office liked him. That was the thing people always said first, and said with genuine warmth whenever his name came up. They liked him. He remembered birthdays. He stayed late to help colleagues finish projects that had nothing to do with his own workload. He laughed at jokes that weren't funny. He agreed with opinions he privately found wrong. He said yes to requests that cost him hours he didn't have, offered reassurances he didn't entirely mean, and smoothed over conflicts before they had a chance to produce anything useful. He was, by every social measurement available, a nice person. And he had been one, carefully, consistently, for most of his adult life. He came to see a therapist, not because of a crisis, but because of a feeling he couldn't quite name. A sense of existing slightly outside his own life, as though he were watching it through glass. A tiredness that sleep didn't fix. A vague, persistent sense that despite being liked by nearly everyone he knew, he was not known by any of them. The therapist asked him, early in their first conversation, a question he found unexpectedly difficult. When was the last time you told someone the truth when it cost you something? He sat with that for a long time, and then he said, quietly, I'm not sure I ever have. That question, when was the last time you told someone the truth when it cost you something, is the one we're building this entire conversation around today, because it is the question that separates something the Stoics considered a genuine virtue from something they would have recognized without hesitation as a character flaw wearing a very convincing costume. The virtue is goodness, the character flaw is niceness, and the distance between them, which modern culture has worked very hard to collapse, is the distance between courage and fear. Let's begin by making the distinction clearly, because the argument falls apart without it. Niceness and goodness are not the same thing. They overlap sometimes. A good person is often pleasant to be around, often considerate, often genuinely warm. But they are not the same thing, and the differences between them matter enormously. Niceness is fundamentally about the management of other people's perceptions of you. It is about being liked, about creating and maintaining an image of agreeableness, of harmlessness, of the kind of person nobody could reasonably object to. It prioritizes comfort, yours, because being liked feels better than being disliked, and theirs, because avoiding discomfort in other people is the most reliable way to be liked by them. Goodness, in the Stoic sense, is about something entirely different. It is about what is true, what is just, what is actually in the interest of the person in front of you, even when that thing is uncomfortable to say, uncomfortable to hear, and costs you the warmth of their immediate approval. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Notice what that instruction does not say. It does not say, if it will upset someone, do not say it. It does not say, if it makes the room awkward, avoid it. It says, if it is not true. Truth is the standard, not comfort, not approval, not the maintenance of a pleasant atmosphere. Truth. The nice person and the good person will behave identically in easy situations. When the truth is comfortable, when honesty costs nothing, when being kind and being liked point in the same direction. It is only in the hard situations, the ones where truth and comfort diverge, where the real distinction becomes visible. And the Stoics believed, without apology, that character is only ever revealed in those hard situations. The easy ones prove nothing. Here is the claim that will make some people immediately uncomfortable, and that the Stoics would make without hesitation. If you are consistently, reliably nice, if you have built a reputation for never rocking the boat, for always keeping the peace, for never saying the difficult thing, that is not evidence of virtue. It is evidence of something much closer to its opposite. Epictetus was direct about this in a way that most self-help content would never dare to replicate. He taught that the person who shapes their behavior primarily around what other people think, who lives in a state of constant concern for how they are perceived, who adjusts their words and choices based on the reactions they anticipate, that person is not free. They have handed their freedom over to every person in the room, to every imagined audience, to every potential critic. He called this living externally, being governed by what is outside rather than by what is inside. And he considered it one of the most fundamental failures of human character, because it means the self is not actually directing the life. The crowd is. The chronically nice person, the one who cannot say no, who cannot deliver hard feedback, who cannot hold a position under social pressure, is almost always, when you look closely, not being kind. They are being cowardly. The smile is real, the warmth is often genuine, but the behavior, the agreement they don't mean, the silence they keep instead of the truth they hold, the conflict they avoid at the cost of honesty, that behavior is driven not by care for the other person, but by fear of disapproval. And fear, the Stoics insisted, is never a virtue, regardless of how pleasant the behavior it produces happens to look from the outside. This is the part of the argument that tends to land hardest, and that people who identify as naturally nice tend to resist most strongly. People-pleasing is not selfless. It is, at its core, one of the most self-interested behaviors available, because its primary motivation is the management of your own emotional discomfort. Follow the logic. When you swallow a truth to avoid upsetting someone, whose discomfort are you primarily protecting? When you agree with something you privately believe is wrong to keep the atmosphere pleasant, whose peace are you preserving? When you smile and say "no worries" to someone who has genuinely wronged you, rather than naming what happened and asking for what you actually need, who benefits most from that transaction? You do, in the immediate moment, because conflict feels bad, because disapproval feels bad, because the discomfort of saying the difficult thing is real and present, while the cost of not saying it is distant and diffuse and easy to tell yourself won't matter very much. Seneca wrote about this with uncomfortable precision. We think we are being generous when we are actually being afraid, and we call it kindness to avoid examining the fear underneath. The person who cannot deliver an honest critique to a friend, because the friend might be hurt, because the friendship might become briefly awkward, is not sparing the friend discomfort. They are sparing themselves the experience of causing it. The friend, meanwhile, goes forward without the information they needed. That is not kindness. That is a person protecting their own emotional comfort at the expense of someone else's genuine interest. The Stoics would call this a double failure, a failure of honesty and a failure of actual care. You didn't tell the truth, and you told yourself it was because you were being considerate. That story, the one where the avoidance is reframed as virtue, is perhaps the most insidious thing about chronic niceness. It is a lie that is very easy to believe about yourself, because from the inside, the fear feels like sensitivity, and the avoidance feels like compassion. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire, which meant that his daily professional life was a continuous series of situations in which telling the truth was inconvenient, unpopular, or potentially dangerous. And the Meditations, the private journal he kept for himself, never intending publication, reveal a man who returned again and again to the same discipline. Say the true thing, not the popular thing, not the safe thing, not the thing that will make the person in front of you feel better about you in this moment. He wrote about the advisor who tells the emperor only what the emperor wants to hear, and identified this as one of the most corrosive forces in any leadership environment. Not because the advisor is malicious, often because the advisor is nice, because they have learned, quite rationally, that the person with power responds better to agreement than to challenge, and that agreement is the easier, safer, more comfortable path. And Marcus Aurelius wrote about how much he distrusted this, not in others, but in himself. He worried, privately, about his own tendency to want to be liked, about the pull toward the easier statement, the softer assessment, the version of the truth that cost him nothing socially. He named this as a temptation to resist, not an instinct to follow. He also wrote something that every person who has ever softened a truth to protect a relationship should sit with. How much more harmful are the consequences of anger, grief, and anxiety than the things that provoke them? He was talking about his own reactions to difficulty, but apply it outward. How much more harmful, over time, is the truth withheld than the brief discomfort of the truth told? The feedback not given, accumulating into patterns that never get corrected, the honest assessment avoided, allowing a decision to go forward that everyone in the room privately knew was wrong, the hard conversation not had, letting a relationship drift on a current of unspoken resentment until the distance is too wide to cross. The nice person created none of those immediate moments of discomfort. They also built none of the genuine trust, genuine connection, or genuine progress that honest engagement makes possible. Here is something that the nice person almost never wants to examine. The people who like them most often respect them least. This is not always true, but it is true often enough that it is worth sitting with. Because there is a specific dynamic that tends to develop around chronically nice people. A dynamic in which the niceness, initially received warmly, gradually becomes something else. Something that erodes rather than builds. People, at a level beneath conscious articulation, can feel the difference between agreement that is genuine and agreement that is performed. Between warmth that comes from real care and warmth that comes from the need to be liked. Between someone who is kind because they are strong enough to be and someone who is nice because they are afraid to be anything else. The person who always agrees with you does not make you feel genuinely understood. The person who never challenges you does not make you feel genuinely seen. The person who never says the difficult thing does not make you feel genuinely safe. Because somewhere you know that they are not being honest with you, and you cannot fully trust what you cannot fully believe. Epictetus said that we should be suspicious of the praise that comes too easily, that a person who tells you everything you want to hear is not offering you friendship, but flattery. And flattery, he noted, is a transaction in which both parties ultimately lose. The person receiving it loses access to the truth they needed. The person offering it loses the only thing that makes them genuinely valuable to the people around them, their honest perspective. The nice person, over time, frequently discovers that they are surrounded by people who are comfortable around them, but who do not go to them with real problems, who do not ask their genuine opinion on difficult things, who would not call them at 2 a.m. in an actual crisis. Because somewhere, without naming it, those people have learned not to expect the truth. And that is a loneliness that has nothing to do with being disliked. It is the loneliness of being liked for a performance, rather than known for a person. Let's be precise about what the Stoics valued instead of niceness, because this argument is not a case for harshness. It is not an argument for bluntness deployed without care, for contrarianism as a personality, for the person who mistakes being difficult for being honest. The Stoics admired courage, specifically, the courage it takes to say the true thing to someone you care about, knowing it might cost you something. The courage to hold a position under social pressure when you know the position is right. The courage to name what is actually happening in a room where everyone has silently agreed to pretend it isn't. Seneca wrote about the friend who tells you the truth as one of the rarest and most valuable things available in a human life. Not the friend who makes you feel good, the friend who tells you the truth, who gives you the honest assessment of the decision you're about to make, who says, with care but without softening, "I don't think this is a good idea, and here is why." Who holds up the mirror rather than adjusting the lighting. That friend is not always comfortable to be around. They are not always the person you want to talk to when you want to feel validated, but they are the person you want in your life when something real is at stake. Because you know with certainty that what they give you is genuine, that their agreement means something because their disagreement is also possible, that their warmth is real because it is not manufactured for your approval. The Stoics called this parousia, frank, free speech, the willingness to say the true thing without flinching, offered not as aggression, but as genuine care for the person receiving it. It requires both honesty and love, the honesty to tell the truth, and the love to do it in a way that serves the person rather than simply discharging your own self-righteousness. That is what goodness looks like, not pleasant, not always welcome, but real. Let's talk about what accumulates in a life organized around being liked. The opinions never expressed, gradually calcifying into the feeling that your perspective doesn't matter until you stop having strong ones at all. the needs never named, growing into a resentment that has no clear target because you never gave anyone the chance to meet them. The relationships built on a version of you that isn't entirely real, comfortable, warm, and ultimately incapable of the kind of depth that only honesty makes possible. And the deepest cost, the one that lives underneath all the others, the loss of your own self-respect. Because you know, somewhere that doesn't lie to you, the difference between what you said and what you meant, between the agreement you performed and the disagreement you swallowed, between the smile that was real and the one that was strategic. And that knowledge, accumulated over years of small surrenders, produces something that no amount of external approval can counteract: the quiet sense that you are not someone you entirely trust. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the person who has lived without integrity, who has said what was convenient rather than what was true, who has acted from fear rather than from principle, arrives at the end of their days with an accounting that no external achievement can settle, not because of judgment from outside, because of the knowledge from inside. The nice person, living the full cost of their niceness, often arrives at this reckoning without ever having been cruel, without ever having obviously wronged anyone, simply having spent a life being what other people needed them to be, rather than what they actually were, and finding, at the end, that they are not entirely sure who that is. Because this conversation is only honest if it points towards something, not just away from something. The Stoic alternative to niceness is not harshness. It is not the performance of bluntness or the worship of difficulty for its own sake. It is something more demanding than either of those: the patient, disciplined practice of honesty and the service of genuine care. Here is what that looks like in practice. It means saying the true thing and saying it with the care that the relationship deserves. Not the comfortable version of the truth, not the version softened past the point of being useful. The real thing, offered with as much warmth as you genuinely have, and without the cruelty of using honesty as a weapon. It means learning to tolerate the discomfort of other people's disappointment, because disappointing someone with the truth is not the same as harming them. It often is, in fact, the opposite. The short-term discomfort of hearing something difficult is almost always preferable, in the long run, to the long-term cost of having been told only what was comfortable. It means being willing to be liked less in the short term by the people who only liked you because you never challenged them, and being willing to be known more deeply by the people who are capable of valuing that. It means asking yourself, in the moment before you speak or stay silent, am I doing this because it is true and it serves this person? Or am I doing this because it is easier and it protects me? That question, asked honestly and regularly, is the beginning of the move from niceness to goodness. It will not always produce a clear answer. It will sometimes produce an answer you don't want, but it will produce something the chronically nice person almost never has, a self you actually recognize when you look at it clearly. He came back after several months of therapy to the question the therapist had asked him on the first day. When was the last time you told someone the truth when it cost you something? He had an answer now. He had started, slowly, imperfectly, with the particular clumsiness of someone learning a skill they should have built years earlier, telling the truth. Not all of it, not always, not perfectly, but more of it than before. To his partner, to his colleagues, to the friend who was making a decision everyone could see was wrong and that no one had said anything about. It was uncomfortable. Some people received it well, some didn't. A few relationships became briefly awkward. One became, over time, genuinely deeper than it had ever been when he was only ever agreeable. And the feeling he had named in that first session of watching his own life through glass, of existing slightly outside it, had begun, slowly, to change. Because you cannot feel present in your own life while performing a character in it. The presence comes back when the performance stops, when what you say and what you mean begin to occupy the same space. The Stoics called this integrity, the condition of being undivided. of the outer life and the inner life pointing in the same direction. It is not comfortable to build, but it is the only condition in which genuine self-respect becomes possible. Stop being nice, not in the sense of becoming unkind, in the sense of becoming real, in the sense of caring enough about the people around you and about yourself to tell the truth, even when the truth is the harder thing to say. That is not a personality type, it is a practice, and it starts the next time you feel the familiar pull toward the easier, softer, safer answer, and choose the true one instead. If this names something you've been carrying, something about yourself, about a relationship, about a pattern you've recognized, bring it into the comments. This is the conversation this channel exists for. Share this with the nicest person you know. They need it more than anyone. Subscribe to Modern Stoicism. We go here every single week. And until next time, be good. Not easy, good.